Talk about actually editing your scanograms. So I'm going to check in my photo folder, and I wanted to show you that I made a scanogram folder. And after I scanned them and they were on the desktop, I clicked and dragged them to this folder. And then I right-clicked and named them with symmetrical scanogram, asymmetrical scanogram, and radial. Then I right-clicked and opened them in Photoshop, and I place them next to each other how I actually want them to be displayed. You have to think about this. This is called a triptych, which means that it's meant to be viewed as three separate pieces together. And how do you want to display your artwork for an art show next to each other? So I very specifically, what do I want them to look at first? And then when they're displayed, are they balanced? So I wanted to put my radial one in the middle and these two on the left and right because the pattern matches, so it almost creates symmetrical balance all together. If you're wondering how do I opened each of these individually in Photoshop, how do I look at my scanograms together? If you go to Window and you go to Arrange, I picked 3 up vertical. So I had opened all 3 of these and then I selected that so you can look at all of your pieces together. So let's just take a look at how I, made these all unified together. So let's take a look at number 1 over here. If I go to my layers, you can see that first I actually added a hue saturation, well, I duplicated the layer, and then I added a hue saturation layer. So I didn't think that this red really unified very well in all 3 pieces. So I added the hue saturation layer, and then I masked out with the paintbrush to make it blue, because I felt like this blue now matched this elephant over here, and it kind of balanced out the whole piece. So I'm going to get rid of that and show you how I did that. So what I did was I created a new hue saturation layer, and I decided that I only wanted to change the red in this piece. And then I changed it to that blue that I wanted to match my elephant over here. And then right now it's applied to everything. So there's a couple things you could do. I'm going to hit Command I to invert the layer to change it all black. And notice that, oh, it looks like nothing is touched here. So remember that black conceals and white reveals. So if that's true, I'm going to go to my paintbrush. I have it selected on white, and remember with the left curly bracket you could make your brush smaller, and I'm just going to brush over, make it a little bit bigger, brush over my red shoe here. I'm going to do the same with this one over here. Okay, and that's looking pretty good now. So now when I look over here, we can see that it looks like anything black is hidden, and I've only revealed that I want the blue to show where I painted white. So that's looking really good. So then I put a levels adjustment on it to really create a little bit more depth and bring up the blacks and the whites. So what I did here, I'm going to delete that. I'll show you how I started that from the very beginning. So again, I went to the black and white cookie and I went to levels, and then I went under red. And I'm taking my slider to the very end of the mountain, just a little outside the end of the mountain. Going to green, do the same thing, bring that slider in to the end of the mountain, and blue. So you do it individually, and it might look silly when you're doing it individually, but now we can see before and after, you see those richer blacks and whiter whites. Okay, let's take a look at photogram number 2. The only thing I did was levels, the same thing I did here. And then let's look at number 3. I did the same thing again with hue saturation. So I just brought up the blue overall in my elephant, just because I just didn't think it looked really dull. Do you see how much richer it looks by bringing up the cyan? And then again, I added the levels. So that's how I made all 3 of mine consistent. That's how I edited them. Again, make sure that you crop them properly. So I went over to the crop and make sure that it's 8.5 by 11. Notice that I selected it and it wants to edit it. It wants to crop it landscape mode. So I wanted to make sure that it is 8.5 by 11 and that it's 300 dpi. I'm going to flip this right here. I'm going to flip the switch here so that I want it to be vertically 8.5 by 11 and 300 dpi, and then you can hit return, enter, or you could hit your little check mark over here, but I already edited them so they're ready. So these three are ready to go and turn in. I wanted to show you a couple from last year. I'm going to go to arrange my workspace here so we can go back to consolidate all tabs. And I wanted to show you a student from last year. She did a really great job. This is one of my favorites from last year. And I wanted to break down how she did this. So this is what she did when she actually scanned it. She then took this and made the canvas 11 by 17, so twice as big. And what she did was she copied it, Command J, and then she flipped it. So she went to Edit, Transform, and she actually flipped horizontal so that she had a second version of this. Then what this kid did was she actually went in there and with her black paintbrush actually painted in all the negative space because she really wanted to get rid of this corrugated look. She wanted to get rid of that. So she actually hand painted all those things. That's how dedicated she was to this. But look at how beautiful this one is. I also wanted to show you another student, Asia. This is one of her final pieces, and you can see again, we don't see the corrugated background if you use that, if you didn't have a pattern in the background. You can also see this like really high level levels she used, which creates this like glam look with this makeup. So hers was makeup pieces. So this is the after she used levels, and this is what it looked like before. So when she actually scanned it in, we can see that it's kind of dull. And she actually has the corrugated, in the background. So what she did here was, again, she just added curves. I'm going to delete this and show you how she did it from the very beginning. We're going to go black and white cookie and add curves. And then she simply brought up the highlights and she brought down the curves until she got rid of the corrugated pieces. It worked for this one. It might not work for everybody. So you're gonna have to kind of pick and choose which, do you use curves? Do you use levels? And then also I wanted to point out that in my photogram, I actually had in one of them, there was a little spot and it was like a little paw was in here. And I actually went in there with, the patch tool to get rid of that. So you might actually have to use, the spot brush tool, the patch tool. You might have little flecks that you need to actually clean up as well, okay? So after you've done these three, then they're ready to, after you've edited them, they're 8.5 by 11, you can upload them to Google Classroom, and you're all done with this summative.